Hello, everyone, and welcome in. Excuse me. Hello, everyone, and welcome into Coach Craig's Sports. This is the MLB DFS Core Pick video, Core Pick live stream for today, May 9th. This is a 10-game main slate overall on this Tuesday. So what I'll be going through in this video is talking about a recap of yesterday's picks, seeing how they turned out, talking about the weather that could potentially be in play for today's games, then going over to FanDuel, talking about the core picks that I do have for today. And then after that, we'll go to the bottom half of the cheat sheet and talk about the top GPP teams to stack for the FanDuel main slate for today. If you guys have any questions at any point in time, feel free to drop it down in the live chat if you're listening live, or down in the comments if you are listening on replay, and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. But without further ado, we'll get started with a recap of yesterday's picks. Let me go on my spreadsheet over here to yesterday as we are moving along. So give me just 1 second to get this all lined up. But in terms of yesterday, a pitcher, we went with Logan Gilbert at $9,500. He was a pretty good play overall. He got to 48 points. He was the third overall pitcher on yesterday's slate, so he did end up being a hit. Then, unfortunately, three of our hitters did not do much yesterday, despite having really good history in the past. So we had Paul Goldschmidt at $3,800. Previously was 8 for 18 with 3 home runs. There's Marcus Stroman, unfortunately, went 0 for 4 yesterday, so he was a miss. Eugenio Suarez was 6 for 19 versus John Gray with 3 home runs in his career. Unfortunately, went 0 for 4 as well yesterday. John Gray actually pitched well for about the first time all season. And then Kyle Tucker against Patrick Sandoval had some pretty good history there. I believe 5 for 11 with 2 home runs. He went 0 for 4 and was a miss as well. And then we had Luis Rivera at $2,900, got 12.4 points, so he was a hit yesterday. So a little bit of a hit or miss day on the slate yesterday, but if you had some other high-end players you had a chance of catching, unfortunately, just the 3 core picks that looked pretty good, had pretty good history in the past, did not end up working out on yesterday's slate. So that's kind of unfortunate, but you'll have that sometimes with baseball. It is one of the most unpredictable sports that there is, especially from a DFS perspective. But, going through the process, more times than not, we're going to have good days than bad days, but that's just kind of the process and the nature of MLB DFS in general. So at this point in time, I'm going to get closed out of this. We'll go over to RotoWire, talk a little bit about some weather spots potentially for today. So once again, it's a 10-game main slate. Maybe 2 or 3 games that we're kind of look at in terms of weather at this point in time. So this Atlanta game does have a chance of rain here, but does not sound like it should impact that one overall. Kansas City Royals, Chicago White Sox game, there is a chance of rain with the chance of delay at this point in time. Doesn't look like anything that should be postponed. So should be able to go off there once again. And then last but not least, let me scroll down to it as we are moving along. As this Minnesota and San Diego game, chance of rain, potential delay, but probably not getting postponed today. So that's kind of the weather spots that we are looking at for today. If anything does change as the day does move along, we'll leave that down in the comments, especially if there's a greater chance of one of these games getting rained out. So you guys aren't playing players from that game in general. But with that being said, we're going to close out of this. We'll move over to FanDuel, start talking about the core picks that I do have for today's slate overall. So we're going to pull that up here as FanDuel is loading. So if you are not familiar with my channel, you're joining for the very first time, first of all, welcome. But what I do is I highlight one pitcher and then 4 hitters, kind of walk through their pitcher versus hitter history, the pitcher versus team history, if it is a pitcher, everything else like that, some of the recent history, and kind of the reasons why I like them in general for today's slate. So we are going to start at the pitcher position. Shohei Ohtani, he's $11,600. He's averaging 43 fantasy points per game on this season. Obviously, looking at his game logs, more times than not, Shohei Ohtani has been great this year. Kind of had that one blip in the radar start against Oakland, but and then the one versus Boston as well. But been pitching really well so far this season. Can't really say much else about him. Has decent history versus the Houston Astros in the past. Last year, he made 5 starts against the Astros. His point totals were 30, 40, 61, 64, and 38. So obviously, more good starts than bad starts there. There was no real true bad start. Obviously, if you're getting only 30 points at $11,600, you're going to be a little bit disappointed there, but your bats still could make up for that difference. So pretty safe play, pretty easy high-end upside guy. Probably be one of the more popular pitchers on tonight's slate, which is typically the case when Shohei Ohtani is pitching on any given slate. Obviously, if you want to look at more pitchers, cheat sheets up there, Patreon. I will have my notes up there as well for different pitchers that we can play today. Maybe mix and match. And once again, I do like Lucas Giolito at $9,300. And then on my cheat sheet, I did throw Brandon Pfaadt down there at $5,800, making his second career start. A high-end pedigree prospect going against the Marlins today. Could be some upside there, but A little bit of risk there too as well. Since his first start, he did give up 7 runs. But if you're looking for a very cheap guy and want to pay up for some bats, that is a guy to consider on today's slate overall. But with that being said, the hitters that we do have for today's slate, we got Gleyber Torres here. He's $2,800. They average in just over 10 fantasy points per game on the season. Goes against the Oakland A's. It is Drew Rosinski pitching today, who's formerly a relief pitcher, kind of converted over to a starter. I think he spent some time overseas in between there as well. So, not a guy that's had a lot of success at the MLB level. Gleyber Torres does not have history versus him in the past, but Gleyber Torres has been hitting the ball really well as of late. And at $2,800, he's quite the value at this point in time. You see 250 on the season, 5 home runs. He does have 5 stolen bases as well, been running a little bit more. And he's got like a hit in 6 out of his last 7 games or 7 out of his last 8 games. He's had multi-hit games in his past 2 games. So some pretty good high-end upside there. Definitely do like him, especially if he is hitting in the middle of that Yankees lineup once again today. Then as we move down, we go down to third base with J.D. Davis. He's $3,200 at this point in time. He is going against Patrick Corbin of the Washington Nationals. 11 for 37 with 4 home runs for him in his career. So some pretty good high-end upside there. Decent start to the season for J.D. Davis. He's hitting 287, 7 home runs, 19 RBIs, averaging 9.5 fantasy points per game. Obviously, we're looking for just a little bit more than that at this point today, at the very least. Recent games, been a little bit more hit or miss. He's kind of a high-end slugger when you do see the high-end spikes there. So that's definitely something we're betting on with that history versus Patrick Corbin once again today. And then as we move down, we're going right back to Luis Robert Jr. once again for the Chicago White Sox. $3,000. So his price tag did go up $100. But averaging almost 11 fantasy points per game on the season going against the Kansas City Royals. It is Jordan Lyles pitching today, who is not anybody we should be afraid of. However, Luis Robert is 0 for 6 for Jordan Lyles in his career, but we'll see these 262 average, 7 home runs, 20 RBIs for Robert at this point in time. Double-digit points. Let's see, the last 6 games, he's got that 7-game hitting streak going on at this point in time. So kind of riding the hot streak as it is going with him, and at a decent price tag with a guy that does have some pretty strong high-end upside at that. Then last but not least, we're going to go down to Austin Slater, $2,500, a guy that has historically hit left-handed pitching very well. Started the year on the injury list, was dealing with a little bit of hamstring injury, but came back hitting pretty well so far. Good history versus Patrick Corbin in the past, 5 for 10 with 1 home run versus him in his career. Like I mentioned, Austin Slater is a guy that really hits left-handed pitching very well. One of my favorite kind of role players in the MLB at that too as well. So not too much to look at here since he's only been back for a couple games, only playing 6 games in total, only started, I believe, 4 of those games. So there is some good upside there. Obviously a guy that can steal base here and there, a guy that can hit for a little bit of pop, especially against left-handed batters, $2,500, looking like a pretty good value for him overall today. But with that being said, if you go with these 5 players that I do have listed here, you have $11,900 remaining, just under $3,000 per player. So if you want to float right around that $3,000 price range, try to build from there. Definitely something you can do if you want to pay up for a guy on tonight's slate and then kind of pay down for some other options. That is an option as well. If you want to pay down from Shohei Ohtani to a different pitcher, could open up some salary that way as well. But different ways that we can approach tonight's slate. Should be a pretty interesting slate once again. But with that being said, we're going to close out of the FanDuel side. We're going to go over to the YouTube community tab, look at the bottom half of the cheat sheet, and talk about the top GPP teams to stack for today's slate. So once again, the cheat sheet is 100% free. It is up on Facebook. It's up on Twitter. It's up on the YouTube community tab. Be sure to check it out as you are building your lineups out today. Some good resources there, giving you guys, different price ranges of players that I do like for today's slate overall. For some reason, I stopped sharing FanDuel and started sharing FanDuel again. So I do apologize for that. Let me get the YouTube one up here as we are talking through it once again. So top GPP teams to stack for me today. I have 3 teams listed here. If you want to stack a different one, feel free to do so as well. But these were the 3 that really stood out to me the most today. So we have the Chicago White Sox going against Jordan Lyles. Some of these guys do have pretty decent history versus him, whether it's an Andrew Vaughn, whether it's a Tim Anderson. Obviously, Luis Robert is on that hot streak. I threw Gavin Sheets down there because he's hitting the ball pretty well if he gets the start against the right-handed pitcher today. Could be a pretty decent paydown spot for him as well. And then moving over to New York Yankees. Lineup's a little bit banged up at this point in time, but still like stacking him in against Drew Rosinski today. Not a lot of these guys have history versus him in the past, but Gleyber Torres obviously stood out as a core play at $2,800 is kind of a value. If you want to mix and match some of these other Yankees hitters, feel free to do so. Anthony Rizzo is a guy that I would like to highlight as well at $3,100. And then last but not least, we have the San Francisco Giants. team that can strike out a decent amount. Patrick Corbin did make a decent start for once in his last start, but he's been one of the lower end pitchers in all of baseball for, about the past year and a half. So do like that potential against him. JD Davis, Austin Slater are guys that have really good history versus him. Michael Conforto also has 5 home runs against him in his career, although he has not been hitting the ball the greatest to start the season. So that is something to keep in mind. We got Wilmer Flores out there as well. Definitely a lot of guys you can mix and match from that Giants lineup. Tero Estrada, if you want to throw him out there as well, since he's a guy that typically hits left-handed pitching pretty well. But with that being said, that's kind of what I do have in terms of the core picks, in terms of the top GPP stacks, in terms of the recap, the weather report for today. As always, if you guys have any questions related to MLB DFS, be sure to leave them down in the comments and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. Also, be sure to check out throughout the day as I'll be posting up the starting lineups down there. And then also be sure to let me know your favorite play on tonight's slate, whether it's someone from my core 5 picks, whether it's someone from my cheat sheet, my top GPP stacks, or a completely different player you guys think I missed on today's slate. Definitely interested in hearing what you guys have to say. But with that being said, if you are new to my channel, checking out for the very first time, please consider subscribing. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS right now, mainly MLB DFS as well as USFL DFS. So definitely be sure to check out all that content. If you're interested in some NFL draft prospect interviews, go back on the channel, check those out. Had the opportunity to speak with quite a few draft prospects, mainly guys that were late day 3 or undrafted free agents, but definitely interesting story there. But with that being said, that's pretty much what I do have at this point in time. If you enjoyed the content, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Be sure that you have that notification turned on so you never miss a beat. But with that being said, definitely do appreciate everyone taking the time out of their day, whether you're watching live or on replay. Definitely means a lot to me, and I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in MLB DFS tonight.